Hello, hopefully you can hear me. I've never done this before. I'm going to try live coding. I'm adding a small feature to OpenBrush, which, if you don't already know, is basically TiltBrush open sourced. I've been working on my own custom features for it. And if I leave this open, what do I leave open? Chat. Here we go. In theory, I don't need OBS open. So, half of the point of this is remembering to do something that I always forget how to do and have to look it up, which is how to add a custom panel to TiltBrush. A panel is pretty much, there's a distinction between panels and pop-ups. Panels are persistent and stick around, and they're the things you can dock to your wand, whereas pop-ups tend to appear for a single interaction and then disappear, and you add them in different ways. It's a while since I've done it. I've completely forgotten how to do it. Let me close down a few things I probably don't need. Let's close down. Let's close down Slack, which doesn't ever really want to go. Task Manager, let's kill it with fire. We don't want work things interrupting work. I think that'll probably be enough. I need that open. I don't need that open. Ruthless. Okay. I'm going to close down Discord because that's another thing that might pop up a message and confuse me. And I'll just close a few of these excessive windows I've got open. In fact, what I might do is merge all my tabs, which I've probably got about 5,000 tabs open. And now of course I've lost YouTube. This was not the thing I was going to be focusing on. You can see how many tabs I've got open. It's kind of pathological. Somewhere in here is a tab I had YouTube opening. Here we go, live stream. So I'm going to pull that out, and everything else can be, in fact, I'll do my one tab magic and close them all down to a tab list. Right, so this was not the point. Are all live streams as meandering and pointless as this? I don't know, because I've never watched one. Concurrent view as one. I suspect that's me. If there's actually someone else out there, type something to me. I'd be quite amused to know. So, right. I'm going to open up my notes, which I keep in a public Google Drive doc. Hopefully, have a website. Here we go. I've basically hijacked a general project website from the ICOSA and OpenBrush team, and it's turned out I seem to be the main person putting stuff into it. So it's got some notes down here which should remind me about how to add a panel. Right, yes, adding a new panel. So I'm going to add this to, I've split my features into feature branches, which I merge regularly into an integration branch, so I can try them all out together. But the idea is some of these features will end up being in the main OpenBrush project. Some probably will never be, or are just kind of my own experimental version ideas. So it's good to keep them separate, because once they get entangled, it's very difficult to fix that. So although it adds a bit of friction, I keep them all separate. So first thing I say in my document is add a new entry to base panel type. See the note above about enums clashing. So let's remind myself. The enums thing is just a general problem. It's kind of a Unity problem, but it's also because of the way Tilt Brush was developed. A tight-knit team working closely together wouldn't have had a problem, but we've got, now it's open source, it's there's much more likely that there's going to be long-lived feature branches by people who don't really stay in contact with each other. So I've come up with a really crude system. The underlying problem is that enums let's look at the enum, that will probably make more sense. Base panel type. Navigate to. I'm using a feature in Rider that is rather handy for finding your way around. So here's an enum that lists all the panels. These actually get serialized. If you have reference an enum in a Unity asset, like a scene or a prefab or a scriptable object, these get serialized behind the scenes as integers, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So if two people are working on features that involve adding to an enum, and we merge those branches, they might shift around position. Like I've added an enum here, someone else adds one at the end as well. When they both get assigned, let's say, the integer 50, when those two branches are merged, one's going to become 50 and one's become 51. So in the prefabs or the scenes that reference them, it's suddenly they're referencing the wrong one. So I didn't want to add loads of process or complexity to it, and eventually I'd like to get rid of these enums entirely. But as a quick hack in the meantime, you can explicitly assign a number to an enum, and then it will never change. And we've kind of decided that every time you start a feature branch, you grab a block of 1,000 enums, which is probably a bit excessive, but you know, better safe than sorry. And you know that as long as someone else hasn't started a branch before grabbing a block, no one's going to overlap. Their enums are never going to overlap with yours. So for this branch, HTTP, I've got the wrong version open here actually. That's an old branch, so the numbers were wrong. That was lucky. I was going to start coding in the wrong file. And the reason I realised it was the wrong file because those enums started from 5,000, which was this branch, and I was expecting to see 6,000, which is this branch. So let's navigate to that same enum in a different branch. I check out. I've got 5 or 6 copies of OpenBrush checked out. I've got to wait for it to finish indexing before I jump to that file. And it's much easier to have them all checked out separately. Hard disk space is cheap. It's much easier not to get in a muddle by switching branches. So I've got a separate. I'm using GitHub Desktop as my kind of easy interface. And you can see I've got multiple repos for OpenBrush, and those same multiple repos show up in Unity Hub, so I can have more than one open at a time. There we go, that's finished loading. Symbol, panel type, here we go. Now if I go down to the bottom here, we should see that I haven't actually added, in this branch, I haven't used any of my reserved numbers, so I can start with 6,000. I've reserved a block, but I haven't used any of them yet. So I've reserved the block 6,000. I'm going to call this panel scripts panel. It might end up being a bit general purpose. I only need it for a couple of things at the moment, which is an easy way of opening an external web browser. So scripts equals 6,000. That's going to give me a new panel. Well, an enum for a new panel that I can reference, and it will get serialized behind the scenes as 6,000. I don't need to worry about that, but it'll stop it clashing if I end up merging this with another branch. So that's step 1 done. Step 2, create a new component inheriting from base panel. So I'm going to flip back to my editor. Base panel is here. Sometimes I keep scripts for my feature branches separate. So in theory, you know, all the GUI scripts should go in the GUI folder, but I've created a API folder that's got my API stuff in. Arguably, a GUI script should still live in the GUI folder, but I don't know. It's amazing how you agonize over these decisions. Best of both worlds, I'm going to add a folder. Oops. What did I just accidentally do? Add. Oh, Ryder, you have too many things in your option, in your menus. Add directory. There we go. So, got a subfolder. Add a class. Base panel, script panel. It's going to override base panel. Now I think the namespace we're using for all of these is tilt brush. I'm not going to take Ryder's suggestion. I'm going to open up an old project because I know I'm going to have to nick some ideas from my other panels. I'm trying to think of the simplest panel. Oh yes, snapping. I'm going to open up snapping because I know I created a panel there and I know it's a very simple panel, so I'm sure I can use that to jog my memory. And I think I called it Snap Settings Panel. Again, because I've done a pull recently that wants to update its index before it will let me navigate. Use the quick navigation tools. Navigate class, Snap Settings Panel. There we go. Oh, voila! That's great. I didn't need to do much on that panel. Maybe I won't need to do much on this one. Okay. Oh, good point. I'm going to need a copyright message, which we're supposed to put on every file. Because of the way the Apache license works. So let's put that in. I think that would have got caught by one of the pre-commit hooks if I'd forgotten, but it's quite handy putting it in there. So I don't think I need to do anything more at this point. Copy an existing panel prefab, but use your new script. So I'm going to switch to Unity for this. Just going to quickly flip back to the browser. Let's check everything's working okay. Seems to be. There's my stream. Excellent connection. One concurrent viewer, which is still probably me. So back to Unity to find an existing panel, which all live in prefabs and panels. So yeah, this is interesting. Again, I want to start with a panel that's kind of simple, or either very simple or very similar to what I'm making. And actually, I think either the experimental panel or the labs panel are pretty minimal implementations of panels. Let's just see what they're using. Aha! Now that's using the base panel script directly. So maybe might have just overlooked the fact that you don't need a subclass of base panel unless you're adding some functionality. I think possibly here I was expecting to add some custom functionality to it, but I didn't need to in the end. So I'm going to update the docs while I'm here. Make that clear. Create a new component. If you think you'll need custom functionality, then create a new, it's not really a component class, as it is, but panel, and then normal text. Let's just format and clear the formatting. Right. Otherwise, you can just use base panel directly in the next step. There you go. That will help you next time. But I've got a class, so I'm going to carry on using it. I don't think... Oh, no, I'm not, because it makes the next step a bit simpler. Let me show you what was going to be slightly complicated here, actually. It's worth kind of demonstrating that. If I duplicate labs panel and call it scripts panel, let's say I did need a custom panel class. There's no easy way in Unity to swap. There's a hell of a lot of settings there that I don't understand this class enough to know which ones are important, whether the default values make sense. If I was to remove this script and add my own, I'd have to laboriously go through and copy in those values again, or at least check if they differed. There is a trick that you can do that can be a bit of a pain. It can cause some weird side effects, but most of the time it works. If you go to debug mode up here, which is for debugging editor scripts, you lose a lot of the nice usability features of Unity's inspector go away, and you end up with some odd kind of internal stuff exposed. But one of the things you can do is pick a new script from this selector. So I could pick my scripts panel, and by pure magic, what happens is when you come out of debug mode, you've got all the same serialized values, but you've got it applied to your new script. That only kind of makes sense to do this if the public fields are very, very similar between two scripts, i.e. same names. It doesn't matter if Unity will do a fairly sensible thing when there are discrepancies, but it's only really a time saver if most of the fields are the same, which it kind of is in this case. Now, let's look at the values and see which ones we do need to change. Panel type here is a reference to the enum list that we edited earlier, so I'm going to change that to scripts. This tells this prefab, it links it to an enum, which is used in somewhere else. It's the way that a command to open a panel knows which prefab to open. It's a bit of a strange way to do it. I think there's probably, the command could have referenced a prefab directly, or it could have used a string identifier I can see the argument for doing it this way, it's a bit cleaner, but enums have their own problems, but it's not worth rewriting this now. I'm going to just change all the other references to labs because this is now my scripts panel. I think everything else is probably generic. I'll soon find out once we use it. So there we go, I've got my new scripts prefab. Let's have a look what the next step is. Ensure your components panel type is set to the value from step 1. Yeah, done that. Maybe I'll add another step, because ensure change, what was the other field I changed? Panel description. Change the panel description field for your new panel to something relevant. Now, as usual, I think. Oh no, it's corrected my terrible spelling of relevance. Relevance, one of those words I always get wrong. In the main scene, under sketch controls, add an entry to the panel map on the panel manager component. Now here's another thing that I really want to get rid of and refactor out because it makes merging painful. If we go to the main scene, where did it say it was? Under main scene under sketch controls. Oops. Panel manager. Panel map on the panel manager component. So it's sketch controls, panel manager. There you go. Let's close a few things up. Panel map. Now this is pretty horrible. I've got some ideas for how to make this a bit less horrible. There's some custom inspector trickery going on behind the scenes here, but it just all feels a bit unnecessary. I'm going to try and come up with a way of auto-registering panels. So again, there's a way that this can be done so merging isn't quite as painful. I think there's also the last one, Brush Lab, has always been missing from this, and I think there's a reason for that. But it means I'm always a bit unsure as to whether I should add an entry for Brush Lab, because these are all auto-named based on the enum value, which breaks down, of course, because I've now got custom enum values. So I don't know, it doesn't seem to matter hugely, so I'm not going to worry. I'll come back and fix it if it's wrong, but I'm going to use entry number 34 for my scripts panel. Should I start this would be better as a scriptable object, but even so, there's a lot of fiddliness here. So, choose the same panel type as before, note the list item, yeah, here we go. Add a button that uses the panel button component. So I think this is the last step actually. I first got to decide how you open this panel. And I've been either putting things on the labs panel or on the experimental panel. Stuff that only works on the experimental build probably should go in the labs panel. But I'm gonna, once I merge all these anyway, it's going to be a bit of a pain to deal with. The other problem with the labs panel is there's two versions, one for mobile, one for normal, so it's a bit more work if I want to support the Quest. So I'm going to use the experimental panel this time, and I just want to find one of these buttons that's already using the panel button as its button script. Oh, none of them. Let's have a look at the labs panel. There you go. Local media library is a panel button. So I might as well just consider on here. Stick it, use it in the. Let's make these windows a bit more sensible. Let's have a look at this. So, I've run out of room. Oh no, I haven't, because it's upside down. I thought it looked a bit odd. I was going to say I've run out of room on this. Not in the slightest. So, there's the button I'm going to copy. I'm going to create a copy of it. And put it here. And I'll make that central. Now, this is going to be fun when I come to merge this. Scripts. Oops. Scripts. So I'm just going to be a bit precise with my transforms here. Make sure the Y value of my new one is exactly the same as the Y value of one next to it. The gap isn't quite right between them. I'll do that bit by eye, and then I'm not going to be too fussy. I'll centre them roughly. So there's my new button. I'm going to need oops. I need to change its name. I'm going to make a prefab from this actually, because it just seems like it's kind of a bit nicer when everything's prefab. I'm wondering if scripts is going to be a bit of a confusing name for a prefab. Let's see what the naming convention is for prefabs already. Action button, brush button, select friend button. I'm going to call it scripts panel button. That doesn't match the naming convention of oh look, there isn't much of a naming convention. In fact, there is option button. Yeah, let's call it panel button scripts. And I'm going to drag it here to make it a prefab. I can't remember where it lived before. I'm always a bit unsure what Unity is going to do when you drag. Normally you drag into a blank area to turn something into a prefab, but when you don't have a blank area, I'm always a bit nervous about dragging onto another prefab because I don't know if that does something different. So instead I'm going to drag it onto the folder there. Did that do it, or did that go and live somewhere else? I think I ended up putting it in the parent. There you go. Move it where it's supposed to be. Panel button scripts. Panel button scripts. Ow! I've just got to move because my leg's going to sleep. So, scripts, button texture. Let's see if I can find. I can never be bothered to make a icon at the moment, generally, so I usually just nick something that looks appropriate, and that looks mildly appropriate for a scripts panel. The other thing, the thing that makes this button know which panel to open is again this enum. So this might be enough here. It's overrides. I'm going to apply all these changes to the prefab because that's really where they should live. I'm not gaining much from it being a prefab, but it's just a kind of habit I kind of get into now. If in doubt, make a prefab. So in theory, this should open. Well, actually, I used a prefab. My prefab was copied from the labs prefab, so it's going to have a load of stuff in it that I don't want. So I'm going to delete everything other than one button, which I'm going to rename. So I should be able to tell now if this works. Right, I'm going to go into VR, which will probably mess up the stream. If it does, I'll just add something in the description. I think we're kind of done here. It's been a good experiment. It's helped me focus. Hopefully it might be useful for someone else. Let's see if this thing actually works. My phone ringing. Let's turn that off. So I'm using virtual desktop to connect to for testing. I just get a better. It's quicker and easier than the link cable. Is a bit funny on this laptop. It's not a great connection, but it's kind of good enough just for testing out little UI changes. So I'm going to open up virtual desktop. Connect to this laptop, which will probably, if anything kills the stream or the audio on the stream, it'll be that. So we'll see. Takes a while. I have a feeling someone's moved the router downstairs because actually the connection has been worse than usual up here, but it does kind of vary based on time of day. Have I got SteamVR open now? So after you've connected once, it's well. So hopefully you can still hear me. Let's have a look at OBS. Yep, that seems to still be working. I'm now controlling this via virtual desktop. I'm going to launch SteamVR from the headset, which can take a while the first time, but again, it's a lot faster once you've kind of done it. That seems to have worked. I'll make this a bit bigger so you can see. Hit play. And I should end up into a brush. And we'll see if this panel button works. So what I've done is I've added a button to the lab panel. Which should open up a panel with a single button called Foo, which is my soon-to-be script panel. Is this working? Forgot something. This is the branch I'm testing the API. So I've got this set to monoscopic mode, which means don't even run in the headset. So that wasn't even trying to start SteamVR. Now I could test this 2D, but opening up panels in monoscopic mode is a little bit fiddly. So I'm going to switch this to just to SteamVR mode for testing. I might figure out how to open the panel in monoscopic mode in a sec. But let's just test it as a normal monoscopic. Sorry, a normal VR. Panel first. Right. That kicks off a bunch of activity in the background, I think. Making sure the SteamVR components are installed, adding the package, which is why you don't switch from SteamVR to monoscopic very often. It's a bit clunky. but it does a lot of things for you in the background. Eventually. It should end up playing. The heat dissipation on this laptop's terrible. The more I use it, the slower it gets as the throttling kicks in. So, compiler errors. That's not to be expected. Loads of errors with stuff that shouldn't be giving an error. I have a feeling this is spurious. I'm going to try just closing Unity, opening it again. I don't think that nothing I just did should have caused that. Yeah, look, it's taking a very long time opening the USD package. So I don't think that had imported properly before. Why that importing that is anything to do with switching the SDK mode, I do not know. Yeah, this is taking a little bit longer than I would have expected. I might take this opportunity to pause the stream, or stop the stream. I don't know whether I can even pause the stream, because I'm getting very parched talking, and no, you can't. You can only stop the stream. I could really do with a drink of water. I'll leave it running then. Let's see what happens when I get back. Won't be long. Right, I'm back. Let's see if this is opened. Check you're all still there. Yep, we've got audio. We seem to be streaming still. And we've got Unity. And we've got no console errors. So I'm going to try jumping into VR again. And I'm going to have to quit and restart Virtual Desktop. It doesn't like it when the headset goes to sleep. I might have to restart Steam VR, but let's see if I can get away with not doing that first. I usually just keep the headset on and plugged in when I'm developing, so I don't have this problem. I could do the old trick of putting some chewing gum on the proximity sensor so the headset never goes to sleep, or blue tack if you don't want to use chewing gum, or a non-specific brand of black tape. some reason new version virtual desktop
measuring bandwidth, the initial step when you connect,
seems to be taking
a lot longer than it used to.
It's a bit annoying because that happens every time you connect. Right, I'm in VR. Hit play in virtual desktop, and fine. Let's see if this thing works. Connection is fairly bad actually. I'm upstairs and it's the worst possible situation for untethered VR. I'm upstairs, the router's downstairs, the laptop I'm connecting to is in front of me. They're both using Wi-Fi. I haven't got an Ethernet cable up here. I could go and develop downstairs, but I just, for some reason, much prefer working up this really nice light in this room. I've always gravitated towards this room, so quite nice if I could just wire some Ethernet up here at some point. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. I can't really because of the terrible connection, but there is a script button on the labs panel. And voila! It's opened. It's opened that new panel, which I can dock to wand, which will remember that next time I open up. This button still does whatever it used to do, but all I've done is I've changed the label to foo. Wow, that worked. So I'm going to take a quick look. The next bit is going to be interesting because it's something I don't yet know how to do. I'm going to change that button so that instead of doing whatever it used to do, which was open a Twitch chat window, I think, instead of that, I'm going to see if I can get it to open in the same way like when you launch, there's a button to launch Poly that opens the desktop. It says take your headset off and it's opened the browser in the background. So when the user switches to their desktop, they'll see a certain web page. I want to open scripts. Because at the moment you interact with scripts via a desktop browser. So I'm going to try and get it to open the main script page so people can instantly start doing clever scripty things. Even works on the Quest. The Quest seems to be quite happy to multitask and let you have the browser open at the same time as an app. So what you can actually do is the same thing on the Quest, do something in the browser and then just switch back to Tilt Brush to see the results of it. I was really surprised that worked as well as it did. And part of the rationale for adding this button is to make that kind of workflow going between interacting with a web page that controls Tilt Brush via the API and then jumping back into Tilt Brush, making that as seamless as possible. So I'm going to open up, I'm going to have a look at the code that's on the main sketch panel, the button that opens, currently opens Google Poly, just to see how it does that. If only I could remember what that panel was called. It's called the Sketchbook panel, I think. Is this it right? This doesn't look right. I'm looking for that. No, it's not that panel. I'm looking for the round panel. Not that one. Admin panel. Here we go. So this button here. Oh, do you know what it was actually? If I remember correctly. No, that button there opens the sketch panel, and it's the sketch panel that's got the button I want. Sketchbook panel. Yes, so I was right first time. So this button here at the top of the sketches panel, if you look at that, browse Poly. So if I remember correctly, an options button is bound to a command, which is another one of those long enums. And fairly, if you get the enum of the button pointing to a command that you've written, I think it just fires off the command. I'll have to remind myself. But look, this is the button we want to copy. Online gallery button. Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to duplicate that. I'm just going to look at this. It's an option button. It's got some description text, and it's bound to a command called View Online Gallery. So if I go back to my scripts panel, scripts panel. If I'm lucky, this will also be an option button. Yay, this is an option button. So I'm going to call this button. I'm going to want separate buttons for opening different kind of. I'm not sure if I'm going to want a button for every single kind of page in the scripts, but there's a few main things. There's the main help page. There's the list of user scripts. I think let's call this help, scripts help. Oh yeah, and there's the documentation of all the commands. So I'm going to call this one commands list. Let's open that one first. Again, I'm not going to make an icon. I'm going to nick an existing one. Not looking too good here. Oh yeah, here they are. They're all up here. So a list of commands. Oh well, it's the same. Is that the same one I used? It's going to be very difficult to think of icons for some of these things. But that looks like a list. I'm going to use that for commands icon. That will do for now. Now I need to go and find that enum. I wonder if it's worth documenting this as I go. Button scripts. Here we go, some information here. No, I won't bother documenting it. This is all fairly obvious. What I would like to know is the name of that enum that's got all the important enums. Here we go. Global commands is the enum I want to add my command to. And code. So navigate symbol global commands. And again, I'm going to use I've reserved the entire block of 6,000 to 6,999 for this feature branch. I can use 6,000 again because it's per enum. I'm going to call this command open scripts. In fact, let's try and be consistent. Open scripting command list. I'm going to be a bit more explicit about the name here because the context was obvious to the user because you're in the scripts panel. So I didn't have to repeat the word scripting. But in this enum, there is no context like that. So I'm going to be explicit and call it open scripts command list equals 6,000. And now if I switch back, that's going to be a delay. Excuse me while I have a drink. Just going to text my dear friend Craig and see if, or get him on WhatsApp and see if I can persuade him to tune into the stream and tell me if it's any good. I'm going to say live on YouTube. Can you check sound quality for me? And I should probably send them a link to my YouTube channel because otherwise your channel, I don't know how to do this from Android. How do I channel. Share. Oh, here we go. Share to WhatsApp. Great. Make it easy for him, and it's more likely he'll be able to help. Although, Craig, you might be asleep. You do sleep some funny hours. You're a night owl. Prefab have been changed on disk. Why is that? Heap changes. Modifications. Don't know why this has popped up. Options button. Commands list. I've got autosave turned off. That doesn't help, but I still don't know why that dialog popped up then. Oh, I did, because saving that enum triggered a change. That's what confused it. Yep. So now at the bottom of this very, very long list, which is horrible to interact with because of the way Unity has odd custom UI elements, is my new command, OpenScripts command list. And might be all I need to do at this point. Let's have a look. Parse list. I've given it a name. Got a button. It's an option button, so it should know how to run a command. I now have to actually wire in the command, the code to actually do something. So again, because I've already got the example from the sketchbook panel, with a command that opens a web browser window, so I can, let's find which one that was. It's called Open Online Gallery, wasn't it? View Online Gallery. So I can't remember where the code for commands lives. I'm going to find references to View Online Gallery in the whole. It shouldn't be that many. Here we go. Sketch control script. There you go. It's in the same file actually that defines the enum. There's a big long switch statement. There you go. If not app config is mobile hardware, which I actually want this to run on the Quest, so I'm going to take that out of it. That's odd because this does work on the Quest. Create info card control. Oh, I see. The bit in the if not mobile is about an showing an input manager control name brush. Oh yeah, slightly different behaviour for the Quest versus PC VR. I think it's to do with showing the please take your headset off thing, which you don't do on a Quest because the browser just pops up by itself. So that makes sense. So I do want all of this. Again, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to have several of these buttons. So this logic here probably needs to be abstracted out into a method somewhere else, but it's going to take me longer to decide where it should live and what to call it, and it will be just, I'm going to just repeat myself a few times for now. Don't get too precious about abstracting repeated code if the code isn't that complicated. You waste more time naming things and chasing down duplicates than you save. So there's another case statement. Give me obviously an error because I've got the same. I've used the same enum, and I've forgotten. There we go. Open commands list. I've forgotten what my new enum value was. Paste that in. That's all the same. That's all the same. App open URL. As simple as that. So I have a hunch my URL will be something plus. Let's have a look at my API manager and see where commands list. I think I've hard coded the URL for this. Here we go. It's /commands. In fact, it would be in my browser history. 474. help stroke commands. So that's the URL I want. I'm not going to hard code the whole thing. Why have I jumped there? Where was I? Oh yeah, I'm in the wrong file, that's why. Close down. Too many things open. So if I was going to be lazy and hard code the whole thing, that would be the URL. But the first bit of it is already defined on, hopefully something public, because it's going to be annoying otherwise, on API Manager. How am I getting URLs? Yeah, there's no variable I can grab that just has. Do you know if I might just be lazy for now? That's interesting. How am I constructing URLs when I need them? Or am I even doing that? I might not need them, because really it's the other way around, isn't it? I'm responding to URLs in this code. I don't actually need to know what the base URL for the API is. I just need to know paths from it. So, and I don't have one. I'm going to be lazy. I'll come back to this. This needs a clean up, but I can live with just hard coding it now. I'll give it a bit more thought properly how, I'll end up with a whole bunch of arbitrary URLs in string literals and it'll get really messy. But for now, let's see, that might work. Let's see what happens. Let's just thinking this through. Have I forgotten anything? Well, let's see if it works. I have a feeling I've overlooked something. Just wait for Unity's compiling stuff. It's all getting a bit slow. Wait for that hourglass to go away. Take a swig of elderflower and ginger cordial. It's very nice. Hit play, and oh, virtual desktop disconnected. Reconnect with virtual desktop. Switch to VR. Oh, my phone's ringing, and it's nothing to do with this live stream, so I'm going to cancel it and call them back shortly. So, plagued by the terrible connection. In fact, you can see the annoying things you can see on screen better than I can in the headset. Let's get that out of the way.
Really bad.
I mean, to be fair, actually, I'm streaming to YouTube, capturing the screen, doing virtual desktop in a really suboptimal part of the room. It's a miracle this is working at all. I'm going to have to rethink some of this. Yeah, no, it really doesn't want to play this time. Oh no, it's disconnected. It's actually disconnected me.
So give it one last try.
No, it doesn't like that. And if I try, it's surprisingly difficult to control VR, not in VR. I'm going to give that a go. All I need to do is get that button there. Hey! It's worked! And here is the very ugly, unformatted list of API commands. My plan is to make these clickable, so that you can try out any of the commands just by clicking on its name in this list. But that worked really nicely. And if I go back, so in theory, that should also work in the Quest. I can just click on that button, do some stuff in the API, switch back to VR, and carry on. I'm going to stop now because that's actually achieved what I wanted to achieve. I'm going to add the other buttons to take you. There's a couple of other useful pages that are going to be nice to be able to open easily from inside VR. And my ambition beyond that is to, in some cases, be able to run scripts directly from VR without going via the web browser. There's quite a lot of work to be done to get that far, but that's all going to live on the scripts panel eventually. So this is a good first step towards that goal and making working with scripts a bit less clunky, and the jumping from VR and back and out again and back in a bit less clunky. Thanks. Hopefully that wasn't too painful to watch. I will get better at this stuff, I promise. Goodbye.